On this Tooltips episode of the Journey to the Baja 1000, we're going to do a part 2 of the Langmuir Systems plasma cutting table and talk about the day-to-day operation with this amazing machine. Hey folks, welcome back to Tooltips and this part 2 of the Langumuir Systems CrossFire Pro plasma cutting table. Well, if you haven't seen episode 1, I recommend you go and check it out. If you're looking to buy one of these tables, in that episode, I talk about what shows up in the box, how I put it together by myself, some lessons learned along the way, and then also you get to see the first cuts. In this episode, I plan on talking about all those other things. And I know everybody has got their different techniques for what they use, but I'm gonna show you what I use. I'll show you the compressor that I'm using, my storage for the tools. I'll show you how I set it up, how I cut with it, and then at the very end of the day, how I clean everything up. So right now, I'm getting ready to cut the upper A-arms for my Jeep J10 off-road race truck, which I'm planning to try to race the Baja 1000 with. Let's take a look at how I get the whole thing set up and cut those parts. So there are a couple things that you need to do before you start cutting, and I'll just talk about them in no particular order. First off, you got to get water into the table. You can see how messy the table gets, and I think I talked about in my previous video how it was funny I was being really careful. You can just see it does become a mess. I'll show you at the end how I clean it up and make it look good, but it's never going to look like it did when it came out of the box. I'm using a simple garden hose. This wasn't even a full garden hose. I think I might be the cheapest person on earth. I found a piece of garden hose that blew out, and I put a connector on the end. I run it out the door to our faucet, and I bring it right in here and I fill it up. I usually bring it to about maybe within a ½ inch of the top of the slats for the water table. So let's talk about the air system. Here's what I got. I'll focus in here on the model in case you're interested in the model that I have. You can take a screenshot of that. I think I got this thing from Amazon delivered to my house for about $800, and it has been a good compressor. It does everything I needed to. There's been some guys who talk about not having the supply of air. Let's say you're doing a long cut and you get maybe 2 minutes into the cut and the compressor kicks on. Does it have enough power to continually cut for a long time? This one does. I do watch the pressure, and the pressure will get down to say maybe 110 PSI. It'll kick on, and then you will actually see the pressure start to build back up and the compressor will turn off. It won't just run itself out of air, so it's been a pretty good system. I run it through this air filter. It is one of the cam airs, and of course I put it on backwards when I replace the filter. There's the filter if you're interested in which filter I have. And then I run it just through this Goodyear hose reel, which I find works pretty good and keeps everything neat. Like everything else in my shop, I put this thing on wheels. I like it that I can move it around and clean up behind the compressor. Obviously, there's a couple things I did extra on this you don't need to do. Also, this thing runs off of 220 volt. I did wire it myself. You can find out online how to do that if you want to do that, but I am not a professional electrician. It did work for me, however. But I am running an extension cord. This is a beefy extension cord, which I run all the way back to one of my welders in the back. So on the topic of air, it is really important to have clean, dry air when you're plasma cutting. I'm, again, like I said, using the cam air system there, and they come with these filters. I have 2 of them. I pried off the very top of that filter. I pried off the little metal piece. You can open that thing up and then pour the beads into a pan to bake them and bake the water out of those beads. All right, finally, I got nothing but love for Langmuir Systems. They have a nice table. I just wasn't a big fan of their computer mount setup. So I have this setup. I think I got it from Husky. So it's a Home Depot buy. And these are a great deal. Sometimes you can find them at Home Depot. When I found these, they were $69. It comes with a power strip on it. I did make a mount in the back to mount the plasma cutter, so it stays on wheels with this thing, so when I move around it all stays together. It also keeps all the electronic parts at least a little bit of a distance away from the control box to keep any interference. It allows me to plug everything in here, including the control box. And what I really like about it is now when I am plasma cutting over here, I can turn the table and orient my laptop such that it is protected from some of the spray and some of the splatter you get. Not all of it, but it does, I think, a little bit better than that laptop stand they have from Langmuir Systems. So this is what I went with, and so far it's been working really well. And also, heck, it gives me some storage too for the consumables. Here's a little bit of the learning curve when it comes to plasma cutting. When you start out, you got nice, big, beautiful sheets of plate steel. And then after a while, you end up having a whole bunch of these things sitting around where you're like, man, well, there's enough steel right here. I could cut something here, I could cut something there. I'll save this piece of steel. And obviously I got a big piece over here. So as you make your design in CAD, you really gotta start thinking about what do I have left to cut into and how I'm gonna nest those parts. I know there's probably programs out on how to nest parts. I don't know where they are, but this is what I do. So I measured this piece right here, and obviously it's 48 inches wide, but I measured it and I have a space that's 21 inches long. I'm cutting out some pretty big parts for the upper suspension arms. So as I go over here to Fusion 360, what I did is I have all the parts here, but I made a box that is 48 inches by 21 inches long. And then now I know that everything I'm cutting needs to fit inside that box. So it's basically, you know, whatever you're making, you just need to start thinking about what am I cutting onto, and maybe you'll nest your stuff just a little bit differently. What's also important on the Fusion 360 is once you get into the manufacturing, or I'm guessing any of the other programs probably do this, but I mean, the Fusion 360 was free, so that's what I'm using, is where is the start point? Where does the computer think the 0 point is gonna be? And it needs to be a point that you can identify on here, and then you can also identify in your piece of metal. Sometimes it might be the center that will be the 0 point, and you set that up, and you can follow the tutorials from Langmuir Systems. They do a really good job of showing you how to use this thing. But there you go. Make sure you know where that's going to be and be able to identify that on your piece of metal such that it's useful to you. Okay, for those of you who have not seen the Langmuir Systems fire control software, here it is. And I've got my upper suspension arm in there ready to go. Now I just need to set the head of the torch to the corner where I'm going to start it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start down here with this jog feature, and by pushing the buttons I move the head of move the plasma torch around at about 300 inches per minute. As I get close to the spot where I'm going to zero out all the axes, I'm going to go ahead and slow that thing down by selecting 100 inches per minute, and then now it makes it much more manageable and accurate to dial right in on that spot that I want to start cutting. And there, that looks pretty good. Right at the corner, I'm gonna lower it down just a little bit. Yep, that's good. Now I'm gonna go over here and click zero all axes. And that puts that start point right where I said it would at the beginning of the cut. So here's my insurance right here. I don't wanna cut in a piece of metal and find out I'm gonna run out of room. So what I will actually do is I'll jog the cutter all the way to the limits and make sure that, yep, everything I'm cutting is gonna stay inside the lines. And you can see I come over here to the limits. And as I jog across the machine, this might be a little bit of wear on the machine, but I'm like, man, it wouldn't take but blowing through a couple sheets of metal before you actually paid for the machine. So just want to be really careful to make sure that I'm not going to run this thing off of the metal and have to start all over again. It all looks good. I'll go back over here and say, go to the XY0. It'll take it all the way back to the beginning and it'll be ready to cut. Okay, so now we're ready to get to cutting. So I almost need to write up a checklist because I think I forget this stuff all the time, but I usually start with some kind of safety. I use the number 5 glasses from Miller to make sure I don't get any art burn to the old eyeballs. So that's just taking care of myself. Usually not too many sparks come off of this. You might want to wear some closed-toed shoes and those kinds of things. Have a fire extinguisher handy, standard kind of stuff when you're welding. Then I think about the plasma cutter. Is the plasma cutter on? Ooh, look at this. don't have it grounded. How many guys have started off and didn't have their part grounded? I will generally ground this thing right to the metal I'm cutting just to get the best continuity for that arc. I know you can connect it to the table, but I have not cut anything where I didn't find that I couldn't just connect it right to the piece that I'm cutting. The air is on. I've got plenty of pressure. Everything's ready to go. I'm ready to start cutting. Okay, so while this thing gets to cutting, let me just say two good things I think about Langumuir Systems. First off is they delivered this thing within a week of the delivery date they were supposed to. Considering the current world situation, I think that was awesome. I was part of batch 2 and it was a week late. And number 2, I had a comment on one of my videos that somebody wasn't pleased with the customer service. And I think you got to have a little bit of a mind shift on how you deal with a company, especially today. They don't have a huge staff, at least that's my impression, to answer phone calls, but they're great at social media. They return my email right away. And then also, if you go to their forum, most of your questions you're going to have are already answered on the forum and they're taking care of it. I think you'll be happy if you go in that mindset. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the results and then we'll go talk about settings and what I have here. So this is the last part that was cut and I think it looks pretty awesome. It's a little bit of dross left over on the part, but that's going to be really easy to take out. Now the plasma cutter that I'm using is exactly the one that they sell on their webpage from Langmuir Systems. I'm using the Razor Cut 45. It does have the torch eye control. It's just a plug and play. I'm not sure about all the other plasma cutters, but this one is super easy to hook up. Now when I run it, there might be a better way to run it, but this obviously isn't wrong because my parts are coming out pretty good. I run it wide open. I run it at 45 amps, and then the air, it figures it out itself. Off the compressor, I'm setting about 100 PSI to this thing, and then it sets the pressure itself. And what I do is I vary the speed of cut. Since I'm cutting 11 gauge here, I just cut at 65 inches per minute. If I'm cutting 3/16, I've been running 45 or 50. And then when I cut the 1/4 inch plate, I've been running 25 inches per minute. And then when you get that Razor Cut 45, it tells you exactly what hypertherm consumables to get to replace it with, to replace this for this torch. Today I did replace one of the electrodes and I replaced the nozzle. I find that the electrodes last about twice as long as the nozzle. So I hope you all don't mind. On a video or two ago, I did a little segment about removing mill scale. I'm going to recycle that video. I think it's appropriate to put it right here because guys who are using Langmuir Systems, I think they can benefit from seeing that. And so if you've seen it before in another video, I apologize, you're getting cheated, but here we go. I'll show it one more time. So before you start to weld on these plates of metal, you really got to get rid of the mill scale. According to Jody on welding tips and tricks, which I go to all the time, if you want to TIG weld on this, you need bright, shiny metal. And so how do you get down to that? You got to take this mill scale off. You can use an angle grinder with a flap disc, and that will get it off, but you'll find that that removes a lot of the material, and it's a lot of work. You'll go through a lot of those flap discs before you get all the stuff off and you're ready to weld on it. Let me show you a better way, and it's going to blow you away how easy it is to get rid of this mill scale. So this is the chemical closet I have right outside of my garage, and in this tub I have just a couple gallons of white vinegar, and I just place the parts in there. I try to make sure they're not lapping over top of each other, otherwise the vinegar won't be able to react with the surface of the metal. And then it gets to work. I'm not a chemist, and I'm just hoping that vinegar and gasoline don't react into some kind of rocket fuel or something like that, but so far it's been safe. After just a couple hours, the vinegar has done its work, and now I can take it out and start washing the parts off with clean water and a brush. Well, this is one of those things I just wouldn't believe unless I was doing it myself. I couldn't believe how the mill scale was just falling off this part as I was scrubbing it with this stainless steel wire brush. Let me give you one word of caution. Don't do this in your mom's sink because this stuff gets nasty, and whatever gets on, it is not coming off forever. So just make sure you have it in a bucket or somewhere where you can rinse it and you're not going to destroy something in your house. So here's a product that I didn't know existed, and if you do any kind of metal work, this tool belongs in your shop. It is the Bristle Brush by 3M. I'm putting a link for it in the description below if you want to get it from Amazon. Now it's about $28. That's an expensive part to go in your tool. But just let me say, compared to the flap discs I have, this thing must last 20 times as long. I've been through plates of metal like crazy, and I'm not halfway through the Bristle Brush just yet. I am careful when I'm using it. I try to make sure that the bristles run off of the part and not run into the corner, and I think that preserves the life a little bit. But as you can see, it makes short work of getting the rest of the mill scale off this. And when you look at, again, the process to get the mill scale off, just think about what I did. I took apart, I put it in the vinegar, it did its thing for a couple hours, I didn't touch it, pulled it out of the vinegar, wiped it down with a stainless steel brush for a couple seconds, and then ran it over with this bristle brush, and it is like shiny silver, ready to be welded on. Just an awesome process I didn't know about before, and hopefully you can use it while you're building stuff in your own shop. So the last step to this is to hit the edges with the belt sander. And if it's a part that I'm going to be welding, I'm going to make it square. But if it's a part that I might bump into later on, I'm going to round it off so it's smooth and it doesn't cut somebody. So I clean my table every single time that I use it. The first thing you have to do is get all the water out of the table. And there's a bunch of different techniques. I've seen guys just have some really amazing systems for emptying out the water out of the table. And this is what I have. That same cheap hose, I just reverse directions. I connect it here to the bottom of my Home Depot 5-gallon bucket. I'll leave a link in my description on where you can find this fitting right here so that you can tap it right into your bucket. And then now the table is divided into two separate pieces. You can kind of see the split right here, and underneath there's two drains. So what you gotta do is take each one of those off one at a time and let the water flow right in the bucket. Okay, so here's the last part about the clean out. Whenever you drain all the water, there's a lip to this exit right here, this fitting, and the water can't get past it, so you end up leaving a pool of water inside the table. You can use a shop vac to get that out, but if you have a shop vac, you know that you have a wet vac or a dry vac. As soon as you get water in this thing, it's destroyed, and it takes forever to clean them out. So what I did is I went to Home Depot and I got this. It was the bucket head. Now you can find this on Amazon. I want to say it's like $41 on Amazon, and I'm an Amazon affiliate, so if you order it, I'll put a link in there. I'd make some money off it. But that being said, I found this for $28 at Home Depot. So the bucket and the bucket head, it does an awesome job. Let me show you how well it does at taking the rest of the water out of the water table. So as you can see, the water goes in the bucket, the metal pieces get stuck at the bottom, and the water feeds out into the garden. Now, I wouldn't let the water go into any vegetable gardens or anything like that, but it hasn't killed any of our plants outside, so it isn't too harmful. And then all the big metal pieces are collected in here, but it does an awesome job. And for like 28 bucks, I mean, you can't beat this for cleaning up the water table. So here it is. That's what's left after vacuuming out. A whole bunch of metal pieces down there. I'll let this thing dry it out, throw it in the trash can, but that is just not something you'd want inside your $100 plus shop vac. Also had one person ask me to clarify what the wires do. Now, this was also confusing to me because I didn't think it was really well written, but this is what you get. Inside, what I think is inside the box for the razor cut, you're gonna get these 2 cables. This one right here is gonna be for firing the torch. It's gonna go straight up and over into the control box, and it's gonna be the torch on and off wire. And then this one over here on the right side is gonna go into your torch height control box. From your torch height control box, it is gonna go into the torch height control cable location there on your control box also. Like I said, if you just go with the Razor Cut 45, it is really plug and play. I'm not sure what the other guys are having to do to hook up theirs, but these are just plug in a couple wires and it works perfectly. All right, for my previous video, I just wanted to clarify my experience with the casters. If you see here, the caster is just a little bit bent as it hits the floor. I think to make that a little bit better, if I just lower this foot a little bit more, it would take the weight, and then the weight would be in line with the leg. But once you put the weight on the wheel, it just bends a little bit. And I think it's because of the spacing. You can kind of see there's a little bit of space here on this insert, and there isn't over here. I'll get a little bit closer so you can see it. And that's just because it's plastic inside of a piece of metal. And I think the best way to go would be to weld a plate, and I've seen somebody do that, and I'll try to add that into my video. Well, that's all we got for the second episode of the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro CNC Plasma Cutter. Hopefully, if you're making the decision to buy one, I helped make that decision a little bit easier. It's really cool. I already had 2 guys contact me on YouTube saying that they have decided to get one of the tables after seeing my first video. I always think it's really cool that we can help each other on YouTube. That being said, if you want to help me out, if there's anything I talked about, a tool or something like that, I will put a link in my description below, which will take you to Amazon. I'm an Amazon affiliate. So if you click on something, it costs you nothing extra. They give me a kickback, and I can use all the help I can get, especially since my wife's going to find out how much I spent on shocks for the J10 race truck. So to the Langmuir Systems community out there, if you're interested in see what I'm putting this plasma table to use for, I'm building an off-road race truck because I want to race in the Baja 1000. It's been a dream of mine for years. Hopefully you'll join us on the next episode. Until then, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you then. Take care of yourself.